Welcome to the Legit Football NFL podcast. Brian McFadden here, co-founder of Legit Football. Joining me, as always, my co-host Kevin Phillip Fox. Kevin, you did a great job holding it down on Monday. This is a holiday week if you're in the Bay Area, so needed a break, had some family in town. Kevin brought it in. Anthony, when I start talking to Kevin, bring him in. There you go. For those that are just listening, not watching on YouTube, I'm just talking to myself. I only see myself until Anthony brings it in. Kevin, are you feeling the loss of football, or are you starting to get excited? Where's your mindset at right now?
You know, we were talking about it in the pre-show. There's definitely a little bit of withdrawal symptoms of football. You know, I wake up in cold sweats, but you know, we're getting there, Brian. I would say I'm about 80% of the way settled into the off season. You know, we have a long stretch ahead of us, so I'm pacing myself in the settling process. You know, because once we're settled, it's time. You know, we're hunkering in. It's draft. It's free agency.
We're in the darkness retreat.
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah, exactly.
We're about to emerge. Don't know anybody else out there who might be going through a similar process.
Sounds like a crazy thing. Sounds like it's not real.
When we come out, we will have even more clarity about the direction we're going to go. Today is going to be a little bit of a stream down episode, Kevin. It's just going to be me and you. Monday, though, looking like we're going to have one, maybe two more people, have a nice full show. I got a few ideas I want to run on Monday, but for today, to end what they call ski week here in the Bay Area. I don't actually go skiing, but all the schools are off for this whole week. Let's hit, as we do always, some legit headlines, followed by our main topic. Our main topic is just going to be open-ended. We're just going to be talking about Lamar Jackson because there's a lot to talk about there. But first, let's get into the legit headlines of the week, starting with the Tennessee Titans. We're starting to see the cap crunching. We're starting to see these teams that are releasing these players that are going to end up saving the money. We've actually discussed some of these possible cap casualties in past episodes. We're starting to see it realized. 4 players get cut from the Tennessee Titans. Left tackle Taylor Lewan, who was on our mention as a possible cap casualty. He mentioned himself on his podcast that he was going to get cut. That was one of the least well-kept secrets in the league.
Yeah.
Wide receiver Robert Woods, we didn't really talk about this much, but not a surprise. He was very ecstatic on Twitter. He said, "I'm free." Linebacker Zach Cunningham and kicker Randy Bullock, they freed about nearly $28 million in cap space, now under 12.4. There is one name on there that we'll get to a little later, but first initial thoughts with the Titans starting to tighten the belt a little bit.
Yeah, nice. That's a good one.
You like that? There you go.
I like that one. That was good.
I'm in mid-season, off-season
That's
form.
a Friday joke right there for sure. It's interesting because I was pretty excited about Robert Woods going to Tennessee at first, but it didn't really feel, after watching him there for a whole season, didn't really feel like it was a good fit. Also, Lewan, I mean, he's at the point where he's one of those elder statesmen at offensive line in the NFL. He's getting to the point where he's not going to be one of those like franchise cornerstone, you can count on him for the next 5 years kind of players.
Also, think about retirement. He's had 2 ACL surgeries in the last 3 years, and he is on the other side of 30.
That's tough. I mean, we've talked about the state of the offensive lines in the NFL, so I don't want to see more good O-linemen go. That would be disappointing. But I do think that for Tennessee, unfortunately, when you have a great head coach, it's tough to think about a rebuild. But I kind of think that they have to start thinking seriously about like a rebuild, like burning it down. I know they've been doing the 1 seed perpetually, and there we go. Armand, there we are, my man, chiming in at the same exact time. I think it's time. I mean, rebuild. Armand says Titans need to start the rebuild. I don't think I could possibly agree more. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, I hinted at a player that was not included in these cuts, but that would absolutely come into the equation if they are going full rebuild, and that's at the quarterback position. We did talk about Ryan Tannehill on a previous show. I believe his cap hit is around $23 million. So even though they're under now, they could really benefit from getting that cap space. But I guess that's we put in the Legit Football newsletter earlier this week when we talked about the Titans that could be dependent on the potential pursuit of Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if Rodgers would go to Tennessee. I don't know if that's the right fit, especially for a rebuilding team. Yeah. But let's talk about Ryan Tannehill. So I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm very familiar with Tannehill. Went to Tennessee after a lackluster start of his career. Granted, there was some Adam Gase years in there, which will forgive anybody.
Those don't count. Yeah.
They do not count in my mind. Goes to Tennessee, has some success, multiple playoff runs, number one AFC seed 2 seasons ago. We tend to forget that.
They're not that rough.
But now, I mean, you drafted Malik Willis. By no means did he show us that he's ready to take over the starting job. You have a top 15 pick, but not high enough to get one of these top guys. Do you really go after an Anthony Richardson when you just went after a Malik Willis? Do you want another project?
Yeah.
What do we think Tennessee should do here? You mentioned they should go for the full rebuild. Does that include getting rid of Tannehill? This is the last year, so they could just let his contract run out.
Yeah, I'm a big, like, my personal philosophy, like this, I attach it to football a lot, but I'm a big believer in, like, the moment you know you need to do something is the moment you should do the thing. You know, like, it's easy to be...
Once it starts inching into your brain.
Literally. Like, the best moment is the next moment. Rip the Band-Aid off. I say go full rebuild. I say rip it to the studs. Look, the Malik thing, I like Malik Willis. I thought he was going to be solid. Like, I love traits. That's my thing. But, you know, you started Josh Dobbs the last 2 games of the season, knowing full well that you needed to win to make it to the playoffs. You didn't go to Malik Willis. You went to your project quarterback, your third string quarterback in those situations. That says all you need to know about where Malik is right now. I'm not saying he can't take a jump anytime soon, but if you're going to go into next season with him as your starter and your only starter, I think you're asking for trouble, and maybe that's part of what that rebuild looks like. Maybe they want to tank, you know, and at that point, if you're tanking, Henry has to be off your roster because you could get a haul for Henry.
Right.
And there's been rumors swirling around about Derrick Henry and where he might end up. And Ryan Tannehill, I mean, yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, you do really need a mid-30s quarterback, you know, who's just kind of clinging to you know, NFL. Tannehill could go be a Band-Aid or a bridge quarterback for another team. And you said it best. You know him well from his Miami days. He wasn't the player in Miami that he was in Tennessee. He found a new ceiling, and I'm really happy for him as a player.
It's also because everything around him was elevated, including coaching, where it was in Miami. The reason I've got Armand's highlight in the chat highlighted here. He says build around Malik, and if they get a 2024 first overall, they can either trade down if Malik is doing well, or select Caleb Williams. So a lot of people are saying that Caleb Williams would be the first quarterback taken above these guys, all the quarterbacks this year. So that's an interesting idea. Like, what if you're going to go rebuild? Like, freaking go rebuild, right?
Like, burn it down,
Trade Henry, cut Tannehill. I don't know if you would be able to trade him. You'd probably have to release him because anybody would trade for him would have to take on that salary. They'd probably want to re-sign him because he wouldn't be that kind of starting caliber quarterback, or he would be just a bridge quarterback. But why not? And if your team blows, if you got a new GM, so I mean that's not, he's not with Rand Carthon, so his job's not in jeopardy. I don't think Vrabel's job is in jeopardy. So the point is, you can afford a bad year to end up and get see what you got in Malik Willis, craft an offense around him, and then if it goes horribly, you can pick number 1 overall next year. I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, it's really not bad. I think Vrabel has earned the that like cushion, that like head coaching cushion, where like I do think that he could afford to guide them through a rebuild, which is like kind of crazy because usually you see coaches, if their first pass or their first big swing at it doesn't work out, usually there's a mutual parting of ways or the team will fire them unceremoniously. But I think Vrabel's been good enough that I think he's owed a chance to take them with another quarterback and another roster and give it another crack, because he's been a top 5 coach in the NFL pretty much every year he's been in the league. Like you said,
he always gets more out of his players.
Exactly.
Than the sum of their parts.
Taking not the best rosters to 1 seeds that's something to be commended, I think.
Yeah, I like the idea. I think we're all in unison, including in the chat, that, hey, Tennessee, strip it all down and start from scratch. And if you have a tough year, you had a lot of success when people thought you wouldn't. So you're on a little bit of house money. I would say go with it. Speaking of quarterbacks and the Miami Dolphins, Marcel Louis-Jacques, who works for ESPN, thinks the Miami Dolphins, by the way, he is not the only reporter who I've seen say this, thinks Miami should decline Tua Tagovailoa's 5th-year option. He writes that Tua's concussion history has, quote, created a new line of skepticism for his viability as a franchise quarterback, and he thinks that Tua would need to get through an entire season relatively unscathed, essentially playing every game, starting every game,
Yeah.
for the Dolphins to commit serious money to him. Tua is going into his 4th year. If they decline it, he'll be an unrestricted free agency after the 2023 season. They can obviously use the franchise tag. We're going to talk about the franchise tag and Lamar later, but I'll let you get started on this first, and then obviously I've got thoughts as a Dolphins fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked a lot about Tua on this show because, I historically get into the draft in his first couple of years. I was not a believer in Tua and what he could become in the NFL. And I think this past season really showed me his potential. It really showed me his ceiling. And with weapons and with, good coaching, So I struggle with this because I do think Tua Tagovailoa could be a great NFL quarterback. I do think he could be a top
We've seen it.
8
I mean,
to
in
12.
spurts, but we saw it this season until he got his 2nd or 3rd concussion.
The concussion thing is just so tough because it's like I'm never gonna knock somebody for injuries. I'm never gonna knock somebody for their health. But that being said, it is a business decision picking up that 5th year option. And I guess where I'm at right now in this very moment is if we have all the information and if they're not, pulling the wool over our eyes as far as he's out of the protocol, he's just as normal as any other player. I mean, yes, the history makes it worse, but if he's not at any higher risk to get reconcussed than any other player and cards on the table, it's all the same in a vacuum for lack of a better term, I don't see why you wouldn't take potentially another year at a discounted rate of a top 8 to 12 quarterback unless there were huge long-term health concerns based on what we saw last season, which it wouldn't surprise me if there were. They probably won't say it because that's something that they're trying to protect the league from and the Dolphins from and him from. But if he's in a vacuum like the next guy as far as head health, I would do it. I would pick it up. But that's a big if, it seems. So I don't know. What do you think?
So here's an interesting thing. Tua said that he is going to be dedicating 1 day per week to judo training. So a lot of judo is tosses, and it's kind of a martial arts wrestling move. And they are trained how to fall because there's so much falling. You're always getting tossed around. So Tua's like, well, if I can figure out how not to slam my head into the turf when I am getting hit, on one side, I see the logic behind that. On the other side, I'm like, that's a little hokey. Either you're built for this league and you understand how to avoid hits, or you're not. And I don't think a single week of judo is going to do that. So that's my thought on that. But let me give a higher bird's eye view from an NFL fan and specifically a Dolphins fan. I definitely saw the ceiling for Tua, and it was very enticing, which was nice. We did not see the ceiling at all. We didn't even get glimpses of the ceiling. We saw flashes, but that's not the same thing. I think back to that Ravens game where they scored 4 touchdowns in the 4th quarter, and Tua was just dicing up a defense that eventually it got better when they added Roquan Smith, but they were a top 5 defense to end the season, and they were in the playoffs. He carved them up and came from behind. That was franchise quarterback type of play.
Definitely.
Not to mention some of these other games we saw him. They took him out of Houston in the 3rd quarter because they were up 30-0. We haven't had a Dolphins quarterback do those kind of things since Dan Marino in the 90s.
Yeah.
So I've seen that ceiling. I understand the concussion concern. I do think he, unfortunately, as great as he was in those few games this year, it wasn't enough for the Dolphins to commit to him at this point. It just wasn't. One more season, like Louis Jacques mentioned, let's see a full season where you get through and you continue to play at that high level, even after defenses have had a chance to study this McDaniel offense a little bit better. If you can still produce and stay healthy and start in these games, then it's worth committing past the 2023 season so that he doesn't become a free agent. And then we can get into the whole franchise. If he has a great year, he might be in the Lamar boat, the franchise tag. We can see that. But first, I want to see it for an entire season. I know he's capable of it. That's not a doubt anymore. A lot of people were doubting whether he was even capable of being that level of quarterback. Me at times. I'm like, I want to see it. I wasn't in the Tua sucks train, but I was like, I'm on the fence train. I've at least been able to jump over the fence and say, okay, this guy could be that if he stays healthy, if he's consistent, if he can prove to keep that level of production over an entire season. So I kind of get this. I get this from Chris Greer and the Dolphins from a team building standpoint.
Yeah, I do too, and it's the ultimate It's the ultimate gambit, I mean, I'm a big believer, again, getting out ahead of stuff, and if you really believe, and if you really think that the health can level out, then you can get him for a lot cheaper than if you sign him long term. And you're missing out on a season of, we talked last year about how important it is to have a quarterback on a rookie contract. You're losing a full year of that window.
They only got 1 year left on the rookie contract. Yeah.
But you take up the fifth year option.
The fifth year option.
Basically two at that point. And so it's kind of the ultimate gambit. If you say, but it seems like a worthy one, because if his health implodes and if you pick up that deal and you get 7 or 8 games again, then you're stuck with a 7 or 8 game Tua and a contract that you probably don't want to pay him for 1 year.
And you still don't have your solution at quarterback after 20 plus years. And that's tough.
It's a difficult proposition. I personally don't want to see health become a reason why a player can't finish a career or be a viable option. That's just like sad, like that's just not, nobody wants that. So I really hope Tua can have a healthy season, play 17 games, and if Tua isn't the guy, I hope he's not the guy for football related reasons and not for health, because that's just sad. That's just not, we love football, but we also love people. We want people to be happy and healthy. So, that's
just like the Niners. We didn't want to see them have to use Christian McCaffrey at quarterback.
That's
even if you wanted the Eagles to win that game. Mm-hmm. Before we move on to the Eagles, I want to quickly mention the backup quarterback. We did mention in Legit Football for the Tua article earlier this week that potential options. There's actually a lot of free agent quarterbacks. I'm not a Teddy hater, but I do think we could upgrade at backup quarterback.
Yeah,
we mentioned in the Legit Football newsletter Andy Dalton and Gardner Minshew, but I like Mike White. He's been in the Mike LaFleur offense, which is modeled after Shanahan, which is what McDaniel uses. He's very good at doing quick reads, a distributor. You need that kind of quarterback. I like that as a backup. I'm not sure he would want to go to Miami. I mean, he's a free agent. It's not a trade. He could choose, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I kind of like the idea of Mike White as the backup to Tua.
Yeah, my thing with Mike White is that he does have some steam. He does have some smoke around his name from a couple of those crazy games that he had. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like overpaid him and like gave him a shot, get like a
true. I don't want to overpay him to be a backup. I agree. If we're questioning doing a 5th year option on our starting quarterback, we shouldn't overpay the backup.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to move on because these are legit headlines.
I was going to say, I do want to say one thing. I love how in the weeds we're getting that we're talking about our favorite team's backup quarterbacks. That's going to be a really exciting thing. Case Keenum's a free agent. Hopefully Buffalo can bring somebody in. I'd like to see an athletic backup for Josh Allen. That's what I'm looking for. Give me one of those young, like failed, give me like a Baker Mayfield type for Josh's backup. Give me restoration.
I kind of like that.
Right?
I kind of like Baker in that offense.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay, let's go. In the weeds.
All right. Let's talk about the Eagles cornerback James Bradberry, who was notorious now for the holding issue to end that game, which, by the way, I don't know if you've seen the NFL films replay of that. It is, he grabs the guy and holds him.
We got a nice little tug.
I know that James admitted at the end in the post game that, I tugged him, but the slowed down, slow-mo replay of him grabbing him before, it's the first part during Juju's first cut, not the part that we saw where he goes out. So let's throw that out there. Is likely to depart in free agency. I don't think this is the only Eagles quality starter we're going to say this on. I think they have a total of 20-something contributing free agents going into free agency. The Eagles,
they paid tackles, both defensive tackles.
Oh yeah, basically they're almost their entire starting defense. But Peter King, Football Morning in America, Tim McManus, ESPN, Bo Wolf, all expect Bradberry to depart in free agency. And the Eagles are going to have to be, we just mentioned this, very judicious with their spending this offseason. Priority number 1, re-signing Jalen Hurts to a long-term extension. 18 other unrestricted free agents, 10 of them starters. That's insane. There's 22
It's a lot.
starters. Basically half of your starting 22 are going out the door. That's a lot to deal with. Bradberry had a very solid season, 74.1 PFF grade. Still 29 years old. Probably has 1, maybe 2 more contracts left in him. Was Pro Bowler with the Giants. played at that caliber with the Eagles. He's now done it with multiple teams, so I do think he will get paid. Quickly, we can talk about Eagles are unlikely to outbid other teams for running back Miles Sanders. I actually don't think they're trying to bring back Sanders. I actually think they like Kenneth Gainwell there.
I think everybody would be all right with that, yeah.
But here's two cornerstones of the Eagles team from back when they went to the Super Bowl in 2018. Defensive tackle Fletcher Cox, defensive end Brandon Graham. Those guys are going to be tough to retain because of their age, because of the contracts they will demand. Yeah. This Eagles team, this Eagles defense, with their defensive coordinator gone, they just lost their secondaries coach to go under Fangio with Miami. By the way, really starting to get excited about this Fangio Dolphins defense.
Yeah.
So a lot to do. Javon Hargrave, you have to try to bring him back.
Right.
You've got guard Isaac Seumalo. There we go. Yeah. Seumalo. Yeah. I got there. I finally got there. Jason Kelsey, is he going to retire? Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Linebacker TJ Edwards with a nearly 85 PFF grade. There's just names all across the board for the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a typical offseason, if you have 2 or 3 of these names that you're saying, you're like, oof, we're going to have to see what happens. But they have, 18 of them. And like you said, 10 of them are super prominent pieces that help them get to the Super Bowl. I mean, the judicious word that's a good word for what they're going to have to do.
They have 2 first-round picks, too, thanks to the Saints.
That does help a great deal. And yeah, I think the Bradbury thing, I mean, that's a big loss. Having great corners in this league is just so important. Like, because we talked about all the great teams have 2 great receivers. Well, I mean, what's the paper to receivers rock? You need corners. You need guys that are going to be out there that are going to be, D'ing up. And so, you keep Slay. Slay's the guy, right? He's right. Your one.
And he's still under contract.
And so that's good. But Bradbury leaving is definitely going to be tough for them to replace. He's got that he jumps routes really well. We saw that a lot in the playoffs. And I don't want to see Philly regress too bad. And I feel like they're at risk of huge regression if they don't figure out some of these names. They gotta be smart. They gotta prioritize the right players. What do you think? Who do you think is the most important people to bring back?
Well, I mean, one of the many reasons why Hurts made such a jump is the play of that offensive line. So I think you have to prioritize. Hopefully, for your sake, Kelsey comes back. But you have a pretty good center that you just drafted, waiting in the wings there. But Isaac Seumalo, definitely have to try to bring him back. Keep that offensive line completely intact. It's okay. As good as TJ Edwards played, you drafted Nakobe Dean. I thought they got a great price on Dean.
True.
And, it's really hard to pay contracts to off-ball linebackers unless they're a Fred Warner type. Right. So I could see them letting him go. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I think the defense was different when he was in.
Yeah.
But what's he going to command? You paid basically nothing for him. I think they traded a 5th to the Saints for him. So you basically got him on peanuts. But what is he going to command after having a good solid season? And when he was out for about 4 or 5 weeks, I think it was that kidney laceration towards the end of the season, their defense wasn't as good. So it's these are the kind of things that you have to consider. But I would start with the line. You do have Jordan Davis, who you can at least a little bit afford to let Fletcher Cox walk. You've got 2 first-round picks. You can use them on defensive players. The offensive skill makers are there outside of Miles Sanders, who I said I think they can let go. So, I would, more than anything, I think I would keep prioritizing the offensive defensive line. That's what got you to the 2 Super Bowls that you've been to in the last 5 years.
Yeah, they do have their core, right? Like Hurts, Brown, Smith, Goddard, Mailata, they do have it's not, I don't think it's panic button time for Philly, but I think they do need to get at least half of those names back. And that's not going to be easy when you have to pay a quarterback. That's going to be a really, really difficult. And it always comes back to that freaking rookie quarterback contract, man. That is such a valuable tool to be able to use when you're building a team. Man, good luck Philly with that situation. That's difficult.
Yeah, we're going to talk, as I mentioned a couple times, about Lamar, the rookie contract quarterback. We're going to go into that one more legit headline before we get to our main topic. Let's start talking about 2023 breakout players.
Let's go.
Lions wide receiver Jameson Williams. I don't think this is a big shocker. No. He was a first-round pick even after he tore his ACL and missed almost the entire season. He would have been maybe a top 5 pick with how dominant he was at Alabama if he had not been injured in the national championship game. Number 12 pick overall, made the most of his touches. His very first catch was a 41-yard touchdown. His first NFL touch,
Awesome.
41-yard touchdown. He also had a 40-yard rush attempt. He claims he would have broken the 40-yard dash record if he had actually been able to run it. This is what Williams himself claims. Stefania Bell, who has been on ESPN for years, she is an injury expert. She's got a medical background. And if she's saying that she expects Williams to fully participate in workouts in training camp, meaning he's fully recovered and explosive of his ACL, also will give him some extra chemistry with Jared Goff, who actually, Anthony will be happy to hear this, was among the league's most frequent downfield passers. So this was an aggressive downfield team, and then they get a guy like Jameson Williams. I see Anthony putting his camera on. I'm guessing he's going to want to pop in and say something.
Let's go.
Hey, so I'm a big fan of Jameson Williams for multiple reasons.
Can't imagine why.
I agree with this topic, the being a 2023 breakout pick. And I think coming off an injury and coming in limited right off the bat is a huge precursor to what Dan wants to do with him being involved in what's looking like a very good offense. And it almost felt like a trial, and he passed it. And then losing Chark, I think, will be the next step to a St. Brown and Williams duo, where and they both have a high ceiling at such a young age. And his only catch in his entire career is a 41-yard catch for a touchdown against the Vikings. And I think that this could be how Dan wants to utilize him, take over the deep game and let St. Brown stay inside, being such a good possession player. I just think that this will open up a lot of opportunities for the offense. And I could definitely see him being used a lot, especially with his speed. He kind of has like a Tyreek Hill vibe going down the field. If they can do it with Chark, if Goff can pass to Chark, 50 yards down the field, he can do it with Williams. And I think that's going to be huge in that offense.
I think that's spot on. Yeah. I think anything you could do to get Amon-Ra more of those routes, between the 5 and 10 yard depth, 5 and 15 yard depth, that's where you want Amon-Ra St. Brown to live. And, you have somebody to take the top off the defense, and you got a couple great running backs. If Jamal Williams goes back to Detroit and you have Swift fully healthy this year, yeah, that offense could be scary next year for sure.
Ben Johnson returning as play caller. Yep. A lot to be excited about, Anthony.
I'm excited.
I don't want to dive into the fantasy implications right now, but we will talk this offseason about the fantasy impact and looking ahead to the 2023 season.
That's going to be exciting.
I love this. I don't even think he could be considered a sleeper at this point. He was getting drafted very high in dynasty drafts last year, even with the injury history. But we will touch on that later. Anthony, thank you as always for chiming in with your Lions thoughts. Let's go ahead and transition to our main topic, and that's just Lamar Jackson, wherever that can go. So we had an article in today's Legit Football newsletter. By the way, guys, if you are not subscribed, it's 100% free. Go to legitfootball.com, sign up. The top 6 stories of the day, 5 days a week, delivered for free directly to your email. That's where we get these legit headlines. They are all pulled directly from our free Legit Football newsletter. So today's article, Jameson Hensley of ESPN, a Lamar Jackson trade has never been more likely, indicates that the contract standoff between Jackson and the Ravens continues to be over guaranteed money, and that a compromise does not appear to be in sight. Team officials have had a difficult time getting Jackson to even engage in negotiations. That's worrisome. Now, reminder, he doesn't have an agent. This is him. He is the agent. So there's no one in his ear that's a professional that's gone through these negotiations telling him, hey, this is how you have to do it. I will speak on Lamar's behalf. There is no agent doing that. He's doing it all on his own. It's all about that. It all comes back to the Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed 5-year, $230 million deal that the Cleveland Browns offered him. $230 million fully guaranteed. And the Ravens have zero interest, it appears, in offering a fully guaranteed contract and want to use the franchise tag on him. So there's more to the article, but I want to start there. I want to tee you up with that, Kevin. You pick which direction you want to go in. You want to talk about the Ravens and what they're offering them, the idea of the guaranteed contract, the franchise tag, Lamar's value. Go.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. I got to say, man, I think... Okay, so this is tough. There's so many things, but I think first and foremost, I'm a big power to the players kind of advocate. So there's a part of me that sees this and I'm like, okay, good for Lamar. Like, he saw what one of his peers got, one of his peers who has a problematic past and who hasn't really proven what they can do on a football field in years. And
problematic past is an understatement.
There you go. Yeah. but he saw what this dude is, what he was paid. And he said, that's possible. I want that too. And so guess I'm happy
Other
for,
owners, not just the Ravens, were furious, I would say, at the Haslams for offering that contract. It just put a lot of
and I think as
quarterbacks
they
in
should be.
negotiations. They're in a
Yeah.
bind.
I think as they should be. I think that was insane. And I think it'll prove to be insane in time, given especially that we saw not the best play from Watson on the field this year. So that's its own domino in this chaotic, like circle of events. But when it comes to the Ravens, I wonder how outlandish this number Lamar is throwing out there is, because Lamar Jackson could be a top 5 to 7 quarterback in the NFL. He's extremely talented. We've seen him win the unanimous MVP award.
I just want to stop you for 1 second, because this comment is interesting, because I don't watch First Take, but Armand in the chat said, First Take this morning, Stephen A. Smith said he got a call from Lamar Jackson, his camp yesterday, and they told him Lamar never asked for a fully guaranteed contract. And we don't know what's true and what's not. However, we do know that teams put these things out there. Teams put these rumors out there saying, oh, Lamar wants it. And it looks like it wouldn't come from the team, but the team does this as a means to kind of move the negotiation along. It's all tactics. But this is an interesting. Let's hypothesize that Lamar didn't ask for a fully guaranteed contract. I've also seen reports that they offer. So Kyler got, I believe, $130 million guaranteed. And I heard reports, we didn't put this on Legit Football because it's unsubstantiated, that they offered him around 170, 180, and that he turned that down. I don't know what's true, but I just wanted to, that's a great point, Armand. I wanted to bring that into the discussion.
That's around the range that I would pay him. I mean, I personally think that like the Ravens should pony up. I don't know how crazy the number is, so I don't really know where the line is that I would draw, because if it's somewhere, in the, north of $50 million a year range, I don't blame them for not ponying up. You can't let the players just say, this is what I want, pay me or I'm leaving. At some point you have to have a hard line. You have to say, okay, see you never. Bye, Lamar. If they tag him and trade him, they can get an unbelievable haul for him. I don't necessarily think that's super wise, because having a quarterback in your possession is like, it's like gold. It's like,
what do you do at quarterback if you tag and trade Lamar Jackson? So I'm going to take this side of it. We don't know exactly what Lamar wants, what he doesn't want, because now we're seeing it. It could have been false that he wanted a fully guaranteed contract, but you've got the 22nd overall pick. There's all reports say that the top quarterback's going to go in the top 15, and even if you could somehow get Anthony Richardson, who would be the one you're closest to getting, maybe with a trade up to like 13 to 15, he's super raw. Like, you might have another Malik Willis on your hands, and that sets your organization back a long time. An organization that was just in the playoffs, was competing for most of the season for the NFC North title with Cincinnati. You've got a very, very good defense. You could say they need more weapons, but especially at offensive or wide receiver. But this isn't a team that needs to rebuild. So what are you hoping to gain by trading away a former MVP to get Gardner Minshew as your starter, or to turn to Snoop Huntley? I don't know. I get that you have to stand your ground and do, I'm not going to give you $230 million guaranteed, because that was insane. Look how he played last year. That didn't help, because insane. Watson played horrible. But at the same time, you got to find some sort of common ground. You have to find a way to keep Lamar, if I'm the Ravens.
No, I agree. And I would be shocked if they didn't. Sometimes I wonder maybe if he's maybe not negotiating in the best of faith, and maybe he doesn't want to stay there. I could definitely see that being a scenario. I do think they've wasted a great chunk of his viability as, the rookie deal. It's gone. It came and went. They didn't sign him. They didn't get out ahead of it, and now they're going to be.
Let's be clear too. They could have signed him. He was eligible to be signed before the Deshaun Watson
and
thing.
They should have. And that's why I applaud Brandon Beane so much with the Josh Allen contract. They got out ahead of it so much, and I think we're now looking at an era where quarterback contracts are just going to start looking more and more crazy, with the cap going up, the Deshaun Watson thing. In hindsight, I love the Chiefs Patrick Mahomes contract. I love the Bills Josh Allen contract. I think those are going to go down as two of the best quarterback contracts in NFL history because
I will say this, they get tricky towards the end of they are very spread out and they're very team friendly now. But those cap numbers are going to start to go up in the next few years.
Yeah, definitely, and that's going to be where we'll see what happens. But for now, you got quarterbacks like Dimes who's going to make more money than Mahomes and Josh. You got quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts who are going to become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, worthy of being so. He's a top 5 quarterback, but Lamar, he hasn't been super healthy, and he hasn't been super consistent. I really like Lamar Jackson. I have nothing bad to say about the player. I just wonder would you give Lamar Jackson the new highest paid quarterback contract in NFL history? You yourself, you're the GM.
If I could structure it in a way that it wasn't fully guaranteed, but was enough guaranteed to lock in my quarterback, and you can do a lot of what the Bills and Chiefs did is they structure these contracts to really kind of balloon down the road. Right. So you still can have somewhat of a team friendly. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is still they're still making, $40+ million a year.
Oh yeah.
But
they're so sacrificial.
I don't know. It's so hard to find a good quarterback. There are teams with good quarterbacks who aren't making the playoffs. Lamar Jackson has been at the pinnacle of play because he has won an MVP now. He hasn't been to that level since, but we know what he's capable of.
Right.
He's still only 4 years as a pro. You're bringing in a brand new offensive coordinator in Todd Monken, getting rid of the old Greg Roman offense. I want to see what I have here. The problem with the franchise tag is it kicks the can down the road. What if it becomes more valuable? Then you just end up paying a bigger contract. What if he has a great year? You have a great quarterback. You have a quarterback who's capable of taking you into the playoffs, and you have a quarterback who is capable of being the most valuable player in the National Football League. You need to find a way to pay him. His contract's going to get superseded as soon as these other contracts get done. Yeah. Burrow's coming up. Jalen Hurts. You've got these other quarterbacks that are going to get paid. Be the first one, right? Because it's only going to get his price is only going to go up. That's what I'm saying. His price is only going to go up.
It's really difficult, Brian, because I see both sides. I don't really know how to adequately draw. This is one of those topics that has so much nuance, and I think that's why I'm glad we're taking it head on, because I think we can bring that. It's just that I do love Lamar Jackson, the player. And if I was the GM of the Ravens, I'm not sure if I would make him the highest paid quarterback with the most guaranteed money in NFL history based on his availability. I mean, dude.
Well, let's talk about the availability. So his injuries have been in the pocket.
Yeah.
He's actually a very, very smart runner compared to some of these others. Compared to your quarterback,
oh,
Josh Allen is not a smart runner. Josh Allen wants to run people over.
I don't have anything bad to say as far as quarterbacks who run is concerned. I don't think that's the point I would make. I definitely do believe in that the running quarterbacks get hurt more is a myth. I completely agree with that, but I do think that there's something to be said for durability when it comes to maybe frame.
Okay. That's a little fair.
Frame and yeah, I don't think
so. You're not a Bryce Young guy then, I'm assuming, because that guy has a small frame.
Well, and the thing with Bryce Young is going to be let's see what he does. You still have the rookie contract to assess whether or not you want to dole out. Because yes, the first overall pick contract is going to be massive, right? You're not getting out of paying the first overall pick a lot anyway, just when you pick them there. But it's not going to be, $50 million a year like these guys are asking for right now, So I don't know. It's there's so much to it. There's so much to it, and I think I don't think I would make Lamar Jackson the highest paid quarterback in NFL history at the moment. And if that means trading him,
so let's go down that road.
Let's
assume that's the way we go.
Yeah.
The Ravens do not offer him. He decides to
choose your own destiny. Podcast
choose your own destiny. Pick your own adventure. Whatever. Choose your own adventure. That's where we're going with this.
I love it.
So, multiple NFL sources told Hensley from ESPN that other teams may be hesitant to trade for Jackson. So now we're hypothesizing, okay, the Ravens put the franchise tag on him. They didn't come to an agreement. Hesitant, given what a deal would cost from a draft capital perspective, which, by the way, if he is given the non-exclusive franchise tag, the price is 2 first-round picks. just automatically if a team trades for them. That's not a negotiation. That's part of non-exclusive franchise tag, gives other teams the ability to offer a contract. The Ravens can match it. If they don't match it, the team who signs him has to send 2 first-round picks. That's no small price.
Right.
As well as what the financial standpoint would be, because they will have to, whoever trades for him, you're not going to spend that kind of draft capital if you're not planning to re-sign him,
Right.
whether it's fully guaranteed or the top of the market quarterback deals. Those are touchy subjects right now among NFL owners. And then, of course, there are concerns about Jackson's durability in general. And we mentioned the quarterback. Justin Herbert's another one. He's going to lose the leverage if the other quarterbacks don't sign for mega extensions or they don't do the guaranteed and they do more like the Josh Allen, Mahomes era. But let's assume that we're going which direction. Who should trade for him? What would be next for Lamar Jackson?
It's so fascinating because I now have been in my head, like the thought experiment part of my brain. Yeah, I agree with Armand. He said I would give up 2 first-round picks for Lamar.
Armand is a Jets fan, just FYI. So he's like bringing Lamar to the Jets.
Easily. I mean, yeah, that's a no-brainer, it feels like. I mean, he's like I said, he's a top 7 quarterback at worst. I mean, he could be a top 3 if he gets it together, you know.
He's been top 1 once. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like he has been to the top of the mountain.
Yeah. So what I think as far as what I would give up, I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, there's all these rumors about Chicago, right? And they have the 1, and they're talking about we're going to trade Fields, get a haul, take Bryce Young with the 1.
That'll probably be a main topic in the future because I do want to dive into that.
Wait.
But
I know.
That's going to be, maybe we could do that
insane.
next Friday.
It's insane. It's an insane idea. But I'm wondering, you know, if you're the Bears and you have Fields and the 1, do you package that for Lamar? Is that too much? Is that too steep? The Ravens can start rebuilding with Fields, and they have the first overall pick. They can draft a stud, and then Chicago has Lamar Jackson.
But
I don't know.
The Bears, Lamar Jackson, and a huge. I will say this: the Bears have the largest salary cap space by far. I think it's over $100 million. So they've got the money to spend,
and they got some pieces. You know, not a ton.
No, they have some, but they got a lot of pieces that they need to fill. That was going to be my next point.
Yeah.
They're not a Lamar Jackson away. I actually like the Jets as a possible destination because I think they could be a quarterback away. You've got the offensive rookie of the year. You got the defensive rookie of the year. You're going to have Breece Hall coming back. You're going to have Elijah Vera Tucker coming back. If they can upgrade at one of the tackle positions, you've got lots of weapons. They could just be a Lamar Jackson away from competing with these AFC heavyweights. The Bears, as cool of an idea as I like that,
I was just thinking about
I don't think that would be a good move on Chicago's part.
No, it would be stupid. Yeah,
It'd
I
be
was
good
just thinking
for the Ravens. Yes, Baltimore, take that. Get Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Get a couple first round picks.
Yeah.
And
the first
run for the
overall
hills.
too. You got a couple of future all pros sitting there at 1, like on the defensive side of the ball. I mean. Yeah, so okay, the Jets. Okay, let's look at the Jets. So couple first rounders, right? Obviously that's a baseline, 2 first rounders, right? You'd probably have to pay a lot more though, right? Because they don't have...
if you're attaching from the Jets standpoint,
right?
I don't know. It depends on how many suitors they get. If this report's correct, and there's not a lot of NFL owners that want to do that, but the Jets are the one team. I mean, it's supply and demand.
Right.
So if the Jets are the one team, they might be able to get away with just that. Like, hey, we'll pay you the 2 firsts. We'll take them off your hands. Anything else, we've got Rodgers, his eyes are adjusting to the light. We've got Carr over here, who we're going to turn into a future Hall of Famer. I don't know. I think that it might not cost more than that.
We just have so many. There's just so many examples of massive trade packages for quarterbacks that I just don't think just 2 firsts would suffice. If I was the Ravens, I'd be like, no. I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. I would fight for more somehow, like whether it's some other way. I mean, I don't know if the thing that you explained, if the tag thing only, like, do they limit your compensation if you use that tag?
No, you can always offer more. That's just
a baseline. That's
the direct, the correlation for the unrestricted. But
I wouldn't do that if I was the Ravens. I wouldn't part with him for just 2 ones. I think you can get so much more.
What do we not know that's going on behind the scenes? If Lamar is really not, they can't really negotiate with him. Like, what if the relationship is frayed for whatever reason?
That's what I'm afraid of.
Armand put in the chat earlier, also on First Take, Stephen A. said that Jackson was not a part of the hiring of and had no input in the hiring of new offensive coordinator Todd Monken. Is the relationship frayed? Do the Ravens, and they're not gonna put this out there. Do the Ravens want to get rid of him because it's past the point of no return, like Houston was with Deshaun Watson? Are we getting close to that scenario? In which case, they don't have the ability to ask for more.
So that's a really interesting talking point, and I'm going to put a pin in it because I do want to say one thing really quick. And I'm talking to you, Brian, but I'm feel free to open this up. This is free advice for NFL GMs, NFL head coaches. This is free advice, okay?
They all listen to the Legit Football NFL podcast.
Your
so
friendly
they're
neighborhood Kevin Phillip Fox, okay? Your friendly neighborhood podcast host, okay? Stop not involving your star players in the hiring of coaches and coordinators. It's so stupid that this keeps happening, and this keeps being a reason why teams lose traction with players. It's the easiest thing to do. Hey, you're a franchise cornerstone, you're a franchise player, you're a quarterback, you're whatever. Come to the interview, come to the meeting. Let's hear your thoughts, because you matter to us. When you don't include them, you're directly telling them that they don't matter enough to you, or they're not a part of your future plans enough. And I just think that's silly. I just think it's such a silly, repeated mistake that we're seeing GMs and head coaches all across sports make. And I'm just like, unless you want to send that message to them that you don't value their input enough to include them in the conversation, I just think it's ridiculous. As far as, sorry, that was I had to soapbox for a second.
I backed up. I gave you the platform. You go. I
just can't believe this is still happening, Brian. It's come on. It's important. It's the power to the players. It's the safe, balanced approach at including your players. Anyways, yeah, I could see the relationship being past the point of no return, unfortunately, but that would have happened rather quickly, and it would have happened rather privately, which usually doesn't happen. So unless a lot of things come out later, it would be shocking if they were that far off. I do still think that if the Ravens just ponied up, they could put all this behind them. I just don't know how outlandish the number is, and that's the big question.
Armand continues to bring value in the chat. Yeah, he mentioned that so the NFL Combine is starting in 3 days. That is one of, if not the best destination for these GMs and these front office people to talk with each other about that's where so many deals at least get started.
Yeah.
So we're going to have, I think, a lot more coming out news-wise after that. So it runs from the 27th through the 6th, so 3 days. So definitely something to monitor there. I think we'll get a lot more color on what direction this is going to go in. Let's pick one more team that we think would be a good match, and then we'll kind of put a bow on the Lamar discussion. For now, we will certainly be discussing it many more times this offseason. So I think we're both in agreement the Jets could be interesting.
Probably the best fit, right?
Yeah, I like the idea of that Bears trade. It would be fun, but I don't think that would. I think that'd be a horrible move for Chicago. But what is another team that could make that maybe he would be a good fit and would be at least somewhat realistic?
I have two that I'm directly floating, but I think the one that's making more sense in my head is the Raiders. They do.
Man, I could see Lamar in black and silver.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying, right? I feel like he would be such a stud with them, and with Josh McDaniels. If Josh McDaniels is going to make it work there, he's going to need the guy. He's going to need Derek Carr. We've talked about him a lot on the show. I think he's a great middle tier, just better than a bridge and just not good enough to be like a top 8, top 10 quarterback. I think Lamar's a step up from Derek Carr, and I think he'll create enough for that offense. And you have Devontae Adams, and you have Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller. I think that's a really interesting. Fit.
I have one that I like, and actually Armand mentioned this one in the chat. And no, it is not the Miami Dolphins, Armand. How about the Atlanta Falcons?
Yeah, I've heard that's the one that has the most buzz, I think.
Yes, that is the one that I think you've got. So Lamar is from South Florida. That's Georgia. It's kind of getting him back to the southeast there. But you've got Arthur Smith with the most run-heavy offense in the NFL last year, even more run-heavy than the Ravens were. They were kind of neck and neck. You've got Tyler Algier, my favorite rookie running back from last year.
Tyler Algier.
As showing a lot of promise, set the rookie record for the Falcons for scrimmage yards in his rookie season, beat out Julio Jones. You've got an offensive line that's very good at run blocking. They'll probably bring back Caleb McGarry. He's a free agent, but he had, I think, 88 run blocking PFF grade. And to add another running quarterback in, they had Mariota. Desmond Ritter's got some mobility. Lamar Jackson's on a whole nother level. And that NFC South is wide open. Like, imagine if this offense, this Arthur Smith offense, just works, right? You add the additional Drake London going into year 2. Kyle Pitts, I don't think we can talk about him as a fantasy bust, but he's still an amazing athlete.
Oh, yeah.
And still had 1,000 yards his first season. He comes back healthy. This could be a fun Falcons offense. They have a lot of work to do on defense, but that offense could put up some numbers. So I think that's where I personally would see him. I don't think he would go to Miami at this point. Especially, we don't have a first-round pick. We don't have the capital to trade for him. The Jets could be interesting, but I think they're Aaron Rodgers 1, Derek Carr 2.
Right.
But I kind of like Atlanta. That's
a great
just
idea.
Juicy. It's also NFC. You're trading him out of the conference.
Talk about a situation where fit just happens to just be a perfect, like, he would be the missing puzzle piece for that offense. They love running their quarterback, and they tried to make it work with Mariota. He just didn't have the athleticism. He didn't have the dual threat very much going for him.
There was no passing threat. He just could only run.
He could run. Yeah, he did. He had a nice season on the ground, but yeah. So I think Lamar Jackson in Atlanta would be a fascinating situation, because I think that he would instantly take them from, kind of bottom dweller, not likely to really contend for the playoffs, to like potentially with a couple more moves, they could be Super Bowl contenders, but I think playoff contenders right off the bat if they get Lamar Jackson under center. So that's how you blow a mind right there on a podcast at 10 in the morning on a Friday. I'm shook.
I like it. That's excited. I would like to see that happen. As I mentioned, with the NFL Combine coming up, we're going to be seeing a lot more news come out. We will definitely report on the substantiated ones on Legit Football, and of course, we'll talk about it here on the Legit Football NFL podcast. Kevin, any last words on the Lamar situation or anything on this Friday as we head into yet another week of the offseason?
Dude, I just want to thank the listeners, man. I want to thank Armand for keeping the chat hot, and I want to thank everybody for just listening and for checking out the videos, the TikToks, and the YouTubes. We're having so much fun making this content, and I love that it feels like there's always football to be talked about. That is like my new favorite thing, because off season, it's a long and painful time, but it's not so painful anymore.
Not so painful. There's always stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I got my Band-Aid over the bullet hole right now with Brian and Legit Football keeping me healed, knowing that I have to wait another 6 months for real football. But this football, this is the best nicotine patch I could ask for.
Well, that's what we do here. We're here to provide a service and to make sure Kevin does not go crazy over the next 6 months.
Appreciate that.
Let's go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much to everyone who's listening, watching. Extra special shout out to Armand, just hanging out in the chat, but also bring some really, really valuable nuggets. I don't watch First Take, so I like that I got kind of Stephen A's info on the call from the Lamar camp. Thanks, as always, to my co-host, Kevin Phillip Fox. We'll be back here on Monday at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern live. I think I want to talk about the Hard Knocks teams. There's four teams. There's only 4 teams that are eligible. We'll play a little fun experiment as our main topic and pick. We're going to have a new guest on, and I might try to get Jimmy Ray on here, NFL Stats. So we'll have a fun party. Anthony Weiner, thank you to our excited Lions fan producing behind the scenes. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that stuff. Check out Kevin's TikTok and YouTube video shorts that we're putting up 5 days a week. This has been the Legit Football NFL podcast, guys. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.